We're here with Brian Sipes, one of the 10 candidates for the Vail Town Council election coming up this November. Thanks for coming, Brian.
Glad to be here. Thanks, Mark.
Briefly tell us about yourself.
Well, my name is Brian. I've been in the Valley this January. It'll be 30 years. I moved here in 1994. I'm an architect. I own my own architecture firm, but I've worked for a couple other firms in the Valley. I'm married, have one child who's 13, who's been at VMS since kindergarten. And I have been interested in politics probably my whole life, and I was raised to give back to the community. I was raised with a sense of duty and community service.
When did you, I know you've lived in different parts of the county. When did you move into Vail?
I moved to Vail proper, to East Vail in 2020, right during the height of the COVID pandemic. But before that, I lived in Minturn for 5 years, and I lived in Avon for, whatever the math says, 18, 20 years, something like that.
So my question for you is what made you want to run for council, but this is the first Vail Council election that you're eligible to run for. So
that's correct.
What was it that made you get those signatures and put your name in the ring?
In a nutshell, it's the housing issue, but in a unique way. So as an architect, I've been following the housing issue for a long time, both during my 2 terms on the Vail Town Council, but also as in my professional practice. I designed the Walking Mountains affordable housing in their educator community. And then this past spring, Senate Bill 213 came through the legislature. And I'm on the American Institute of Architects, the AIA's Legislative Affairs Committee. Big group of people that reviews the legislation coming out of the State House, makes recommendations on whether or not we're going to take a position on it. SB 213 came through, and for those of you who don't know what that is, it would have essentially erased local zoning ordinances and allowed anybody to add density and development wherever they wanted. Might sound like a good idea for the Front Range, would have been absolutely disastrous for our community. And I thought it was a no-brainer that it was going to get shot down. So I came into the meeting that we had prepared to kind of talk about our position, and I was shocked that to a T, every single one of the Front Range architects was in favor of supporting it. So that sort of was my wake-up call to get involved. I have a lot of ideas about housing. I've watched the issue and seen what has worked and not worked. And the core of the issue is that it's an economic issue. The wage disparity doesn't support our housing prices. And we've done various measures throughout the 30 years I've lived here to sort of put our thumb on the scale of the economy, to try local residency requirements for deed restriction, price restrictions, all different kinds of things. I think now is the time to get even more aggressive and address the issue. And I see the housing issue as a symptom of a larger issue, which is the economy. Affordability is not just your mortgage payment or your rent, it's the cost of gas, it's the cost of time taking your kid to daycare. And those of us who are lucky enough to own property, it's the cost of property taxes. I got a big shock this year, I'm sure you did as well. The beauty of things like price caps are that those shocks go away, because the increase in property taxes keeps pace with the increase in the market value of the house. So I really think I can get in there and do a good job in addressing the issue and bring some new ideas to the table. I don't know if you want to go into those. This is going way off topic of just why do I want to run. But
my next question was going to be, what is for jargon, what is your elevator pitch on why people should vote for you? So I think my guess is there's some similarities in what my previous question was.
Yeah, so Mark, you and I have known each other a long time, and you know that I'm not an elevator pitch kind of guy. I believe some of my core values are that there are no simple solutions to very complicated problems. And there's a quote by President Eisenhower, Dwight D. Eisenhower, that I've always carried with me throughout my entire life. and that is when a problem seems insurmountable, make it bigger because usually you're just not seeing all of the parts. And once you understand the enormity of the problem, you can then tackle it and get to the bottom of it. And I think the housing issue and the economic issue and community issue and sustainability, these are all sides of the same gem. So my elevator pitch is a very, very tall building elevator.
That's good. I like that line.
I need to tell people and explain things because I understand the issue on a very, very deep level. I absolutely welcome all sides. You know from my time on the Avon Council, I'm not a firebrand, and there's nobody that has a lock on good ideas. Good ideas come from everywhere. It's our job as public servants to take those good ideas and do things with them.
So what are you doing to get that message out?
I am doing the normal things, which is I have a website, sipesforvail.com. Going to have signs coming very soon and stickers, but I really want to have conversations with people. So I've been reaching out into the community, going to visit people. I will be having some meet and greets coming up pretty soon. As soon as I can get those identified and put on my website. But I really want to talk on a deeper level with people. I've been reaching out to other community leaders, current Vail Town Council members. I had a breakfast yesterday with Siri Roman from the Water and Sand District because, as an aside, I feel like water and housing and affordability go hand in hand, and it's a scarce resource. And I served on the Upper Eagle Regional Water Authority for 4 years, and then I was an elected member of the Water and Sand District Board for I think 3 years when I lived in Minturn. So I understand the water issue, but one of the things that Lynn Brooks and Siri would tell you if you talk to them is I've always beat the drum of closer coordination between the land use authorities and the water provider. Right now, there's no connection. And so we need the land use authorities go approve an upzoning, and then the water authority has to figure out how to bring water to the table or have the developer bring water to the table and figure out what to do with that resource. That time is gone. Like, we need to be looking as a town at where do we want to allocate that scarce resource? Where does density belong? It's a planning issue. Where should that increased density go? It's the polar opposite of what Governor Polis was proposing in Senate Bill 213, which was, who cares, just open the floodgates, pun intended. So are we at the top of the 300-story building yet?
This is good. We're getting into it. This is nice. So I'm going to ask you more of a personal interest question. So you moved to Vail in 2020, which wasn't that long ago, but you've lived in the Valley for a long time. What was it that made you make that move all the way up Valley, and even more so to East Vail, so all the way up Valley? Yeah. What was that?
So I've steadily moved up Valley the entire time I've lived in Vail. I started in Avon, which isn't down Valley by any means, but then went to Minturn, largely because that coincided with when Tennyson, my son, started school at VMS. Was getting a little bit closer. But as long as I've lived in Vail, I've been enamored with East Vail. So as an architect, I look at things in the real world a little differently than a lot of people. I see things three-dimensionally. And there are only 2 places in the entire valley where all of the man-made development exists only on the valley floor. Doesn't go up the sides of the walls of the canyon. And that's Minturn and East Vail. And I've lived in both of them. I like the beauty of East Vail. I enjoy it. I convinced my wife, who doesn't like the cold, that was going to be a good move because she has to go to Denver a lot to meet with clients. And so that was a little bit closer. And then the ultimate deciding factor was now my son takes the in-town bus to school.
That's pretty
which
cool.
is really cool.
Yeah.
Thank you, Vail, for the in-town bus.
Do you own any investment property in Vail?
Other than my house?
Other than your house you live in?
Nope.
Okay. You might have answered this, but I'm going to phrase it differently.
Okay.
What was the last Vail issue that got your blood boiling?
Oh
and
my.
what did you do about it? and what are you doing about it? And if you get elected, what will you do about it?
Very little boils my blood on politics because I've sat behind that dais, and I understand that choices are limited. You're only one of 7 voices, and so it would be I would not be one to throw bombs at people for doing that very hard position. It's a public service after all. I tend to see that people are doing their best and trying to serve the community. So I can't name any one thing. I think we've missed some opportunities. I hope to be able to revisit some of the Dobson project. I think we're missing an opportunity to be really bold there and make a true iconic statement for Vail. The East Vail parcel is the obvious one I think you're probably getting at from the question. I look at that.
No preconceived answer.
I live in East Vail. I've watched that. A lot of people have asked me to take a position, and I've purposefully said no. But here's the facts as I see them. I think it's irrefutable that development on that parcel would harm the sheep. Like every single expert that has stood up has said that. So that's got to stand for something. I also do not buy the rhetoric that anyone who's against that project is against housing. Because if Vail Resorts wanted to deliver housing, they could do it on Evervail today without a lawsuit. And if you look at the housing mix that they're proposing, it's very clear that they're selling townhouse units, the more luxurious, larger units that people would want to move up into from apartments if they choose to stay here as a seasonal employee, or they get married, or they start to have kids. Those are all for sale, and they're funding the other ones. So as part of the conversation on affordable housing, until we look at it as a cost of doing business, I'm a business owner. I pay employees, right? The cost of their housing and their life is built into the cost of their salary. But the salaries have not kept pace with what it costs to live here. So until the largest employers in this valley start to look at it as a cost and not for a way to leverage other things to still make a profit from it, we're not solving the problem. We have to change that economy.
The exact opposite, even though your blood doesn't boil, what do you do for fun?
I hang out with my son, who's a hoot. He's a swimmer on the Avon USA swim team, and this past January he was one of the top 10, at the time he was 12 and under boys in the state. So that's always fun. We go to a lot of swim meets, a lot of travel. I love to snowboard. I love to hike. Again, going back to East Vail, I love that I can just walk outside my door and be in wilderness, not forest, but wilderness. Right. That's very special to me. I have a 21-year-old 4Runner that I've done some modifications to, so I like to go four-wheeling down by Telluride and Silverton and places like that. So, right. And I like to travel. Love going to Europe, love going to South America, wherever.
So we're coming to the end of our time.
Okay.
The opportunities that candidates have to directly address all the voters are few and far between.
Yes,
Here is your opportunity to ask and explain to the voters why they should vote for you in this upcoming election.
Okay.
And that'll be the end of our interview.
Awesome. Well, and thank you for this opportunity. And to the voters in Vail, I would say, you may not know me, but if you, I tell people a lot that, do you know I was on the Vail Town Council for 8 years, 2 terms? And most people I meet say absolutely not. And I actually like it that way. So I'm not in this for the name recognition or the personal gain or anything. But if those same people are asked, do they know about the stage, the road diet, the heat recovery project, of which I'm particularly proud of. The entire Avon Rec Center is heated from waste heat from the sanitation district plant in Avon. The West End, the gondola, all those things were either conceived or finalized during my terms. That's the only thing that's important. Nobody who sits in this chair or in the chair at Vail is important in and of themselves. That they're only important for what they can do for the community to carry on the vision. Vail started with an amazing vision of a very special place, the #1 mountain community in the world, and the people that serve Vail should maintain that and try to always live up to those ideals.
Great. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you.
Thank you for running for town council and your previous service.